Hello everyone and welcome to Helix Plays Games, not Helix Cloud Games anymore. We'll talk a bit more about that in just a second. My name is Richie and joining me this week is the host talking the PS, Mr. Chris.
Hello everyone, Merry Christmas.
Hello indeed. We've got a great show lined up for you this week. We'll be discussing Microsoft responding to its Game Awards absence, The Witcher 3 being awesome, and Call of Duty could be coming to PS Plus. All that and much more in this week's XPass. Before we get into it, I think we do need to address the channel name change and the reasons behind that. We're not abandoning cloud gaming. We've talked about it as a change, but it's more really just a tweak to the branding a bit.
Yeah, it's literally just, again, so for those who haven't seen it, we put out a post the other day, we've changed from Helix Cloud Games to Helix Plays Games, purely off the back of when you search out channels and YouTube and Twitter and social media algorithms, having cloud in our name does not benefit us in seemingly any way, shape or form. We've looked at our own metrics, we can see our numbers, and we can see the way Luna's not really making any moves at the moment, any big moves anywhere outside of the US. Stadia's obviously closing in less than a month now, and yeah, GeForce Now and all the other players are doing wonderful stuff. We know obviously here on XPass, Microsoft do absolute tons to involve cloud gaming as part of their ecosystem, but it does just become a kind of a component of the wider Microsoft and Xbox ecosystem. Sony are doing their thing, Nintendo are doing their thing, so in terms of cloud, we kind of feel like having it is a core part of our branding. It just kind of deters people from thinking, oh, I'm into PlayStation and Microsoft, but I haven't really tried out cloud gaming yet. Yeah. It doesn't bring people into it, so what we want to do is just kind of refresh, rebrand, take cloud out of the name, and then hopefully when people get on board with the channel and they see our content and they realise that a lot of the stuff we do is powered by cloud gaming, like our live streams, like our first looks, it just kind of, again, it's a better foot in the door, we feel.
With cloud gaming is still quite heavily stigmatized as well. I think when we had Stadia, we had this one platform that looked like it might break through to like kind of rally around. Mm-hmm. I think it worked with the cloud gaming stuff, but now we're more focused on Xbox and PlayStation. It felt a bit like, although we are still going to be covering cloud gaming predominantly, the cloud in the title, it felt like it was maybe just holding us back, and people might just be put off by that one word, which is largely inconsequential to potentially their enjoyment of the show. Absolutely. So we'll be playing games, and I think just to reiterate, we've already covered it in our Discord and such and other shows, but yet nothing's changing. Like this show, XPass is still the same. Talking to PS still goes up tomorrow. CloudQuest is there. We've got our live streams every Thursday. We drop random first looks on random days as well. So, and a lot of that, as I mentioned, will be powered by the cloud. Because let's face it, Richie, it's more convenient for you and me to just boot up a cloud stream and capture that rather than run it natively. So yeah, don't expect any major changes yet. We have got an exciting new show to announce that goes live this coming January. Which I guess, even though we announced it on Talking to PS, we might as well put it out there now as well. What I was going to do is I was just going to tease it now, because it is a bit more in line with Talking to PS.
That's a good idea. Our members know about it, because our Helix Heroes got it yesterday. They know, you know. Shh, don't tell anyone.
So if you're a member, you can get early access to that announcement. You can get it now for 99p.
You can, from as little as 99p. But
it's something a bit different for us. I think you're going to like it. We're really looking forward to it. That'll be something that's kicking off in the new year.
And tune in for Talking to PS tomorrow.
Well, yeah, we might as well just go straight into the housekeeping since we're basically there. So if you haven't already, like the video, subscribe to the channel or your podcast feed of choice with notifications switched on, so you're kept in the loop of all our great content, such as the aforementioned Talking to PS. We also have CloudQuest. Again, it's not going anywhere. Anyway, I can't remember what we're talking about. I'm not fully well at the moment, guys. I do keep like halfway through sentences to get brain fog. But yeah, we've got CloudQuest, our cloud gaming topical discussion show, our new show coming out next year, which definitely look forward to.
Which is like 4 weeks away now at this point.
Yeah.
Less than 4 weeks away.
And actually, last week, we actually dropped a lot of like Let's Play style content. You started your playthrough of The Last of Us.
I did.
Live, that's ongoing. I dropped a first look at Chained Echoes, and we also live streamed High on Life, which we'll be talking a bit about in just a second.
Lots going on.
But first, Chris, would you like to introduce us to the
reason Rob actually isn't here on this particular episode as well is he got stuck through train strikes. So for anyone wondering why our other co-host also isn't here, he's been busy with work this week. He's not ill or anything like Richie, seemingly. He just got stuck due to travel infrastructure and strikes in the UK. But he's alive and well. He'll be back soon.
I believe, unlike, despite what we say on Talking the PS tomorrow, he is back now.
He's safe. Safe and well.
We're just recording these out of order. We're recording these a day apart, that's all. And
time is a flat circle. And so Richie may seem better today, but worse tomorrow.
Yes.
That's how it goes sometimes.
I'm going to seem even worse on Friday at CloudQuest.
Absolutely. Oh, yeah, another week.
Yeah, I had a bit of a rocky one on CloudQuest.
But I think what you want me to introduce, really, Richie, is the excellently exuberant, excavated Xbox expose, a.k.a. the
news.
As always, high-pitched news.
The news. Yeah. As always, our news is brought to you by our Helix Heroes, which I've already mentioned. You can join for as little as 99p, such as MJ Parks did. Thank you very much for coming back. Love you. So, first news item, High on Life First Impressions. So, we played it.
We have, yeah. First looks up on the channel. We played it this past Thursday using the power of Xbox Cloud Gaming. Like I said, we would.
Yeah.
And, my first impressions, I kind of tempered my expectations a little bit. The early reviews were coming out were kind of 7s. Some places give them 8. Some places gave it really low scores. And I think a lot of that boils down to the comedy styling of it. We knew going into it was Justin Roiland, creator of Rick and Morty, Solar Opposites. And his comedy can sometimes be quite polarizing, as most comedy can be. So the way I approached it is I'm a fan of Rick and Morty, so from the trailers and the clips we saw from the Summer Games Fest and the Xbox Showcase, that I kind of had a feeling I was going to enjoy this anyway. And then jumping into it, no surprise. You and me were laughing our heads off at just some of the jokes, some of the humour that's scattered throughout just the opening scenes alone. Yes, you have a talking gun. It's a first-person shooter set in kind of an alien abstract world. And just the dialogue is constant, and it's interesting because we praise a lot of games like The Last of Us and Uncharted and God of War more recently for that constant dialogue talking to you throughout the whole game, not just cutscenes, not just when you're interacting with something.
And we're not talking about one of the things that's annoyed me a bit in God of War Ragnarok, where sometimes your party members, if you spend even 30 seconds not doing the right thing, go, look at this thing. We're talking about just the general banter and well-building sort of stuff.
Yeah, just the dialogue that goes back and forth. And High on Life, it does have both pros and cons from that. Chuckle away at the gun talking to you and interacting with random characters you'll pass by. And they do feel like a lived in real world because they speak. It doesn't sound like anything they say is almost scripted because Justin Roiland's comedy is very much just off the cuff. He just basically talks and talks and talks. Some of it's funny, some of it isn't so much, and I feel like in a real-world environment, when I think in the opening scene we're walking around the city, and there's just random people going, oh, hi there, yeah, okay, I'm just walking here, and then if you go to ask them a question but then walk away, they go, oh, okay, I guess you don't want to talk to me anyway. So, and it's just like, it feels natural, and like, rather than a traditional scripted game. And, praise where it's due, really funny, chuckled at it, some dark humour in there as well. As I said, if you're a fan of Rick and Morty, you'll enjoy this.
I think this is actually a hard game to review because what I think you have to do is you have to look at the Justin Roiland element first and go, right, if you're not a fan of his humour, hard pass. I don't think if you're not a fan of Justin Roiland, there's nothing in this game for you, basically.
Yes,
if you are, then you can start reviewing it as a game.
Mm-hmm. I agree with that.
When it comes to gameplay, from what, I mean, you were on the sticks, so I don't know in terms of how the game felt to play, but it kind of looked like generic shooter. Like
it was, yeah. The comedy adds a lot too, but the shooting, I think about probably just short of an hour into it, I said to you the shooting feels a bit basic, like strafe left, strafe right. You do get some upgrades further in the game as it progresses, but
you were already gagging for a new weapon early on in the stream.
Yeah, it doesn't, obviously it doesn't fit in the same line as we'd expect from like Call of Duty Battlefield.
No.
It doesn't have that fluent movement as you'd expect with like a pistol or a gun. And that's just because, again, this is an indie studio making this game, Squanch Games. They're not AAA, but I feel like it's AA, kind of touching the ceiling of breaking through to something, but evidently the budget didn't go necessarily on mechanics.
Yeah, it felt like some of the enemies you're fighting just felt like unnecessary bullet sponges as well. That did some of them, they're just like grunt enemies, just didn't seem to go down very quick. It seems like your gun was a bit underpowered almost. I know weapons are upgradable.
Yeah, similar to the traversal in the first boss fight we came across, that it's just a bit clunky. It could have done with a bit more refinement and polish. But in terms of like the game, we played it for probably just short of 2 hours, I believe. And I had a fun time with it. And there has been that scratch at the back of my mind saying, you could just jump back in. Like, just do another hour or so. And I think what the best kind of review I've seen of this game is, don't treat it like a traditional video game. Treat it like a TV show.
Yeah.
If you jump into it and enjoy the comedy and the humour, just watch an hour, play an hour here, play an hour there. Don't binge this thing. I think the game's only 8 to 10 hours long anyway, from what I've heard. So just treat it like a season of Rick and Morty and jump in, have a couple of laughs, shoot some generic bad guys, fight a boss, leave and come back in a week's time or a few days later. That seems to be the best way to enjoy it.
I think it's the sort of game where you're probably better off playing at maybe an hour or two max at a time. Yeah. Because I think the gameplay, I think, is more sometimes in service as the comedy rather than the other way around. You have to look at the kind of the whole package, where it's one of them. If you're just looking to play a game, I don't think this is the one you go for. If you kind of got that itch to for a bit of more Rick and Morty or something, this is probably the best time to pick it up to play it. But yeah, I think this is why the review scores have been so mixed, because it is quite hard to review because it's a comedy shooter, and if the comedy doesn't hit for you, then the game is dead. But if the comedy does hit, then you've kind of got to go, okay, is there enough in this game that I want to play and experience? I think in general it is a good game if you are a Justin Roiland fan.
Yeah, I mean, it's on Game Pass, so check it out anyway. I think even at full price, I think it's only a $49.99 pound-dollar game, but it's worth checking out. And if it grabs you in the first half an hour, you'll probably enjoy more of it. If not, probably move on.
Yeah, I was thinking about this morning as well. Is the more simplistic gameplay could be to actually be beneficial for the game, because Justin Roiland fans who have an Xbox, who are not really hardcore gamers and stuff, would probably find it easy to jump in. Yeah. Because it doesn't have a million different systems to learn. It doesn't have it's not a high fast twitch. Seems quite generous in where
it's quite accessible.
Handles,
There's
little things like it fully heals you after battles, so you can just go straight to the next battle without having to worry about your health or looking for items or anything.
Absolutely, and yeah, like you said, there is something to be said about its simplicity, and when we
can work for it and against it, depending on
when we get into
are.
talking about the Witcher next gen update later in the show, there's a kind of polarizing element to that, which we'll get into that later on, going back to Witcher 3. So
that's going to be interesting, because I know you have been playing it.
I have.
Have you played any more since we last talked?
I have. I played some last night, so even though that'll be tomorrow. So tomorrow, talking the PS, it'll sound like I've barely played any, and today I've played a little bit more, which is yesterday's, today, tomorrow's future world. But we'll get into that later on.
Yeah, I think we move on now. We just the one little one actually about the Game Awards and Microsoft. So Microsoft have kind of responded, because Microsoft have actually come under quite a bit of criticism actually for basically no showing at the Game Awards.
Rightly so.
Yeah, I actually completely agree, rightly so. And they kind of give out a kind of half-assed statement, in my opinion. Kind of saying, it's basically along the lines of, there's exciting things coming next year, don't worry about it. Kind of almost shrugging off the criticism.
Okay.
What are your thoughts, Chris, on this?
it's all marketing, isn't it? And I think that's the biggest thing we thought. The reason we give them so much shit last week after the Game Awards, and the reason seemingly every other journalist and content creator and person who covers Xbox, even like the hardcore of the hardcore, I'm talking like Ryan McCaffrey at IGN, I'm talking Jez Corden of the Xbox 2 podcast, Paris Lilly, who does the Kind of Funny Xcast, like all over the last week, they all tweeted out and covered the same things on their respective shows, that it was a bad look for Microsoft and Xbox to not be at the biggest showcase. And I think Jeff Keighley's tweeted out since saying the Game Awards this year's numbers was like over 100 million views or streamed.
That's something I was going to get onto. It's
bigger and bigger year on year.
Year on year, the Game Awards is growing.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm starting to get this thing where I think Sony, Microsoft, and Nintendo, they want to almost like control the narrative a bit too much, where like only have their own things, especially since with E3 dying, everyone's doing their own like showcases and stuff more and more. But sometimes I kind of think like as gamers, as consumers, we've kind of almost went to the Game Awards and went, that's the place.
The Game Awards is the new E3.
Yeah,
like, even though E3 is coming back next summer, apparently.
It was nice to have like E3 in the summer and then Game Awards in the winter. So you had these two big tentpoles. But like we've, as gamers, I think as a like wider community, we've kind of just went, be at the Game Awards, we expect you there, have something to show.
And yet they weren't. And remember, this is the same company that revealed the Series X and S at the Game Awards. They showed last year, I think, Hellblade and some of their other titles. So to not have anything outside of a Game Pass promo with Samsung, I think did just hit a lot of people, especially after a quiet year on Xbox when two of your biggest hitters that should have been out this year got delayed. And it's all well and good to say, well, COVID and lockdown and all the other things, and the natural nature of making video games takes time. But however, on the flip side of the coin, Sony put out Gran Turismo, Horizon Forbidden West, and God of War Ragnarok. 3 absolute stellar AAA games. And kickstarting next year, you've got Forspoken. And then we go into apparently next year Spider-Man 2, which tomorrow on Talking the Piece we talk about Spider-Man 2 coming next fall. It's just kind of like everyone's just sat going.
You've got a lot of Final Fantasy coming. I mean, we didn't talk about it in Talk the PS.
Yeah.
But the Pixel remasters are coming over at PlayStation.
Yeah.
You've got Final Fantasy 16. You've got Final Fantasy 7 Rebirth. Crisis Core's just dropped.
It seems like there's a lot of stuff going on the other side of the fence, and I think that's what creates frustration. And I think the biggest crux for Microsoft, which has been their problem, is they announced at the showcase last year that they showed the next 12 months of Xbox, and Starfield and Redfall, albeit they got delayed, they were in that 12-month window, which means up until the 1st of June, Starfield and Redfall should come out by Phil Spencer and Microsoft's marketing department, by what they said and what they posted. So it seems odd that you would go into a massive global showcase with an audience of over 100 million, all eyes on the industry. Phil Spencer himself was present at the awards, and not bring like just a trailer or a date or a month or just anything.
Yeah, I think this is compounded because it's been quite a quiet year for Microsoft first party, which is then being showcased at the Game Awards when Microsoft basically got nothing, barely even a mention in the actual award side of it, and then also had nothing to show. And they're saying, we know there's some great games coming next year, but it's like you're kind of expecting to see them. Like Redfall, I think, is definitely a game that needs a bit more attention. Like Starfield, fun. Like people have been looking forward to Starfield for a decade almost, basically. So Starfield's going to be fine, but things like Redfall's like, I have to usually, if Redfall hits the news, I have to go back and watch a few trailers to kind of remind myself what that game even is.
It's like
it's not. It has, when a game just doesn't stick in your brain and what it is.
Oh,
and this is one of the things that like resting like the laurels on for next year is like the kind of, I think it needs a bit more of a push. And you'd think that after a quiet year, you want to get people excited for 2023, and the Game Awards is probably the best place to do it, because 100+ million eyes on it.
Yeah. And this is off the back of a week where they also announced the prices of the main games were going up to £70 and $70. And it just, again, I feel like, as you said, a lot of stuff was compounded, but I do think I've seen rumours actually on Twitter this morning, which is quite good that we're recording this a day later than we normally would. I've seen a few of the journalists who cover Xbox say that there's big rumours of a showcase happening in February, which would make sense.
Okay,
like they need to do something.
That makes sense, but I kind of think like as a consumer, if I was a marketing exec, I kind of want maybe a showcase in either November, December to kind of like set up the next year. Like, here's what you can I'd like to have that one showcase towards the end of the year, whether it is at the Game Awards or our own thing. Yeah. Where it'd be like, right, this is, whether I was PlayStation, whether I was Nintendo, or whether I was Xbox, to kind of go, right guys, we've had a good year. This is what you can look forward to in 2023. Like, just even if it's just like, I don't know, an hour and a half long of like, you don't have to stick dates and everything you don't have dates on, but like, kind of just go, here's some of the big hits that we're planning to release next year. This is why you should be excited about our platform in it for the next 12 months.
Yeah, and we're no strangers to lack of communication coming from a Google Stadia background. Like, we touted for 3 years about like clear communication, a roadmap, and that's just as two consumers and gamers ourselves, and having our ears to the ground very, very closely when it comes to the games industry. We all, I think, as a community, we want to know what's next. Like, we're always the type of people who are at the cutting edge of technology, high investment purchases. Like, we're the type of idiots who go out and buy VR day one when it costs 550 quid. We're the type of people who buy a Pro controller for 200 quid because it's got extra paddle sticks. We're the type of people who buy a video game for £70 day one, knowing fine well if we just held patience for 3-4 months, we could get it for 20 quid. But we don't do that because we're enthusiastic about new shiny things and it's telling us what's
to us. It's worth the money.
Yeah,
but I kind of think November is probably the best time for me to put a showcase to show what's coming in the next year, because around about November time, that's when people are starting the Christmas shopping. Mm-hmm. So that's when consoles might be getting bought. So if you want to get little Timmy, if Timmy's after a new console and he's on the fence, if you turn around and just drop a load of news in November about, say, if Xbox dropped a load of news in November, you're showcasing to little Timmy why he should be excited by Xbox and not PlayStation.
Yeah.
So then little Timmy goes to Mum and Dad, I want an Xbox for Christmas.
Yeah. And I think this goes back to maybe Microsoft and Xbox's marketing campaign for this Christmas. I feel like the budget that would have went maybe to the Game Awards was spent on absorbing the cost of a £50, $50 saving on the Series S, because the marketing for cheap Series S bundles has ramped up non-stop since Black Friday. You can pick up like a Series S for less than 200 quid in the UK, and that cost has to go somewhere.
I have heard some stuff that at Microsoft, because the Activision Blizzard King deal has kind of consumed everything that's going on at Xbox at the moment, and even like going further into Microsoft as a whole. So it's like almost like an all hands on deck to get this over the line thing.
Yeah, but I don't feel like the marketing department has anything to do with the lawyers dealing with that. Like, let's face it, does the FCA and stuff really give a shit about
it? Might be
Redfall
not
trailer?
necessarily the marketing team. It might be the guys above them not passing down the instructions, not passing down that direction that the company goes in. So like, things are just, there's no one coming in and go, right guys, this is what we need to do by the end of the year. But because everyone who would do that is now focused on something else. So
possibly,
I mean, that
either way, it's not a good look on all fronts, because if the Activision deal doesn't go through, that's bad on all fronts. You've said you're making deals with Nintendo and stuff already.
This is one of the most entitled complaints we can ever really have. It's like we're basically annoyed at Microsoft for not getting us excited enough about great games coming next year.
But again, that's the industry they live in, right? They live in a world of hype and entertainment. This isn't crunching boring numbers on the stock market. This is like, you need to get people excited to buy into your product. Because if it was boring and dull, no one buys it, and then you go out of business. Like, not that they will, but
gaming is bizarre in that the marketing is actually part of the entertainment value for like those of us who are really passionate about it. Mm-hmm. Not like, I'm not talking about your average I just play games every now and again. Those who actually call themselves games, this is my primary hobby. Those like who would start a podcast on Google Stadia, for example. Like,
only a fool.
Like I've said on record loads of times that I think the Game Awards is effectively a 4-hour long advertisement, and it is. Mm-hmm. But every year I get excited to watch it.
It's the Super Bowl. video
it's
games.
Like he's all the shit that you should be excited for next year.
Yeah. And the Super Bowl has a lot of advertisements as well, right in the middle of the game. So, yeah. This won't go away, and I do hope they have something lined up for the new year. And we know they will, because let's face it, they have to come out at some point. Like, that's the great thing with gaming. As much as we bemoan stuff not being shown and stuff being held behind closed doors, at some point next year, they will have to come out and talk about it, because the games are due out before June. So we will see more of it. We just, again, have to be patient. So, as rumoured, Jez Corden and stuff, journalists out there saying February time. Which, again, that's only like 8 weeks away. So
I just wish Microsoft's response to the criticism was a bit more than just a tweet. Like, it's a tweet that is kind of like, it's okay, guys. I mean, I'll read it. This is from Aaron Greenberg. We have a lot planned to show and share about an incredibly exciting year ahead for 2023. Appreciate folks are eager to learn and see more. Timing is always key, but don't you worry. You will not have long to wait for what's next from us. The bit I would like to see in that tweet, rather than you won't have long to wait, is save the date, February. Something's dropping in February. We'll be talking more in this month. A little bit more focused on like when we can expect more, rather than it's gone. We'll talk about it soon. Because they must have at least, if they're planning a showcase, at least a date in mind.
Yeah.
I think that would make the statement just come along a bit more like, okay, yeah, guys, we know we weren't there. We probably should have maybe give you a heads up that it's going to be a quiet one from us. That's one of the things they could have done. Like, in the run-up, go, right, guys, we're not going to have a huge presence at the Game Awards because we're working on stuff to like get you excited that we're going to announce next year. The timing's not quite there yet, so...
Yeah, saying anything after the fact,
you'll hear more from us after Christmas.
Yeah, the damage is done. It's too late trying to mop up the ashes afterwards. It's easier to get ahead of it and just set expectations. But again, I'm sure they'll learn from the mistakes, and I guarantee you, absolutely, Richie, guarantee you, they will have a big presence at next year's Game Awards, because they won't want this to happen twice.
Yeah. Well, they'll be hoping they'll have things like Redfall and Starfield and Game of the Year.
I mean, like, we can dream.
Yeah. I think it's one of them things where I'm excited for like an Xbox like full presentation for the first time in pretty much ever, really. Now, as a new Xbox fan, someone new to the ecosystem, where I mean, I've watched the Xbox presentations at E3 and stuff in the past, but it's usually not the one I'm putting. I'm mainly there for the third parties, but now I'm interested to see what the first parties are doing as well. But,
yeah, same. Again, I'm hyped to be part of whatever the next Halo looks like. Gears of War's been dormant for some time. Obviously, we know Fable's on the horizon. We should be getting a Forza Motorsport next year as well. So there's a lot to be excited for.
There is, and that's not including like any new IP they decide to bring out. But talking about IP, 5 Criterion veterans have departed after the launch of Need for Speed Unbound.
Need for Speed Unbound seemingly has came and went without so much of a gear shift. It does feel like this was a game that was rumored, had a trailer, launched, all within the space of what felt like 2 to 3 months, so very quick turnaround time. EA somehow managed to keep it fairly under wraps. Came out receiving okay praise. I've seen a lot of reviews say like actually it doesn't change the formula too much, but the art style and the kind of sharp detailed animations on it do actually make it feel a bit different and fresh. And yet I just feel like I've seen no marketing for it at all. I've not seen one advert really. I don't recall anyone talking about it. And this is Need for Speed from EA. This is like big on usually a lot of fronts. It's one of their key titles when it comes out, and yet
sometimes when it comes to marketing, I kind of think we think about things when we were a kid and you'd be watching proper television all the time and you'd see billboards and stuff, where I think now marketing is a lot more targeted, because like I see most of the adverts I see come from YouTube, and I bet you're the same way. It might be you see like in the space of a week you might see 3 or 4 adverts just constantly on repeat.
Google, I do not want to buy a Nest camera. Stop.
You're getting Nest camera. I've got Marvel Snap to turn back up for me.
Marvel
Snap. It had a break,
yeah.
And now it's back. But I wonder if it's because Need for Speed's not in our wheelhouse. We're not seeing these. But it's like, well, but I watch a lot of gaming content, so like, you go that granular YouTube that you're just showing me the one thing you think I'd like, rather than going, you know what, he likes gaming, maybe he'll like this.
I like Nest cameras, but I don't want to buy another one.
Yeah, like on my Facebook feed, it's all guitar stuff at the moment, because I was like keeping an eye on Facebook, like marketplace for guitars. Like I cannot see anything other than it. Like,
yeah, I actually have kind of like PTSD flashbacks when I hear the Google advert now, because it's so like, you know, when you hear your alarm on a morning and that, like, it just cuts through that sound.
Yeah,
the start of the Google Nest Cam adverts, like every time I hear it, it's like, oh, here we go.
I feel sorry for the developer of Marvel Snap who does the advert. I feel sorry for him, because I've started to hate him. He seems like a really nice bloke, and he's like very passionate about like Marvel and like gaming. Is like, I should like you, but
here at Marvel we found the best way.
Because I keep seeing this advert so many times. I know I could get YouTube Premium, but still.
Yeah, exactly. In terms of Criterion,
that's nothing to do with Need for Speed. That's in terms
of Criterion and Need for Speed's seemingly poor performance, who's left? Is it relevant people? Is it the big honcho, or is it just a few people from the team?
I think it's let's find the names. So Matt Webster's left the studio. Criterion's vice president and general manager Matt Webster's left the studio after 23 years as head of the studio development, and 17-year Criterion veteran Alan McDermott. They're joined by senior technical director and Andre Shires, who has been with the company for 16 years, as well as executive producer Pete Lake, who joined Criterion in 1996. Head of content Steve Uphill also leaves for his most recent 10-year stint at Criterion. These are all, when we say veterans, like they're all over a decade and all seemingly in senior positions.
So quite a lot of experience then. And again, it's no surprise. It's usually worrying when game devs leave before a game launches, because you got to think there's kind of like bonuses don't get triggered, and something's wrong with the game when like a director leaves or a story lead when the game's still got another year or so to go. You always question like what the decisions were. But I guess leaving after the launch of a game, there's not really much more for you to do. If you intend to leave and go do other projects, you're not going to spend the next 2 years working and building one project that you're NDA'd and you can to just leave. You know what I mean? Like if there ever is a time to leave, it probably is after the launch of a game.
Yeah.
Maybe seems a bit too close. You want to kind of see it through to probably the new year, but I guess if one leaves, the rest follow suit, right?
It depends what the plans are. I mean, with so many senior people, I wouldn't be surprised if they started their own studio.
Oh, I think that seems to be the consensus. Absolutely.
Well, it's this. I don't think this. We could go the route where this could see this as not on EA. They don't want to like work on the big corporate EA anymore. But sometimes we've seen it in loads of places where it's just a case of, you know, I've done the big studio thing. I now want to go back to kind of almost grassroots. Go back to like setting up the studio as well. And you tend to find in a lot of careers, the longer you're there, the more you get promoted, the further you get away from the thing that got you into that career in the first place. Yeah. So it might be a case of a bunch of these guys actually want to go back to making games rather than directing teams and stuff. So, and they want to go back to a smaller, close-knit thing. You don't know. They haven't announced what they're doing. Absolutely. And it might just be because it's like the end of the year as well. It's like, well, the game's come out. It's kind of fallen out the news a bit. It was a bit more of a subdued launch, but apparently it's done okay.
Looking at the UK sales, not that the UK sales charts, obviously the world, but you can generally get an idea, and you can track physical box sales. Top 10s: 1, God of War; 2, FIFA 23; 3, Call of Duty Modern Warfare; 4, Pokemon Violet; 5, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe hanging in there; 6, Nintendo Sports Resort; 7, Pokemon Scarlet; 8, Sonic Frontiers; 9, Animal Crossing; and number 10, Minecraft on the Nintendo Switch. So for a Christmas week, for a Need for Speed game not to be in the top 10,
I don't know how much I trust box sales. I think
it still gives you a general idea.
It's a loose thing, and I think Need for Speed has become a bit more. It's not a temple of the gaming industry anymore. It's more of a niche. It's a cult classic nowadays, I'd say.
But should it be beaten by games that have been out for 7 or 8 years now, like Mario Kart?
Mario Kart beats everything. There's a few exceptions that break the rule. Mario Kart and GTA 5. Like, you have to just ignore them when you're looking at these numbers because they're just ridiculous. Like,
yeah,
Pokemon's always going to do well. God of War
both versions.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, always.
Imagine if, with Pokemon, like you get 2 iterations every year. Could you imagine if any other franchise did that? Could you imagine if there was a God of War Ragnarok and a God of War whatever, and there were 2 separate versions, and there was just subtle differences in the 2 of them? Could you imagine the uproar for Sony or Microsoft to try and implement that?
As a Pokemon fan, I think this is something that can die now. Like, just bring out one version, like, especially when the last 2 games simultaneous released, but it still is two games, shouldn't have been released yet. They should have been. Oh yeah. Realistically, they needed another couple of months in the oven at least. I mean, as much as I am enjoying them,
but that's a whole different
thing. Yeah, I'm enjoying it despite its flaws, but.
Yeah, it's an interesting one to think how it could work. Same with I'm pretty sure there's like a rule of thumb that the colour, so like Violet and Scarlet, it's always the firsts in their naming convention that sells more.
I thought it was something to do with like the more ready one always seems to sell more because red sold more. I think gold always sold more.
See, but then when you're saying that, isn't it Pokemon Red and Gold? Pokemon Red and Blue, so red's first. Pokemon Gold and Silver, gold's first.
Yeah.
What was it? Sword and Shield? Sword won that one. So it's like it seems
yeah, I went for Shield, but there's something in Sword and Shield's like no one wants to be the guy with the shield. You want to be the guy with the sword.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
It's cooler, especially when you look at the demographics for that game, which aren't the demographics for Need for Speed.
Yeah. Need for Speed, like you said, I think it's fell from grace quite a lot as racing games have maybe become a bit more niche over time.
Yeah,
and we as older gamers, we've said time and time again, like racing games don't really do it for us now because we're adults. We drive our own cars, so that like magic you had maybe as a kid, driving around in the car that you will maybe have in several years' time and drifting and nitrous oxide and living your best Fast and Furious.
Either. I can appreciate nice cars, but I'm very happy driving my 10-year-old Fiesta.
Yeah, they're also expensive. Yeah, just like gaming.
Well, that's it. Yeah.
But hopefully these folks will move on to create a brand new team. As you said, that will be the best win for it. And taking experienced veterans and getting a brand new studio out as consumers just means that EA will keep plugging that gap. We'll see more Need for Speed inevitably, but we get hopefully something that rises from the ashes of these guys leaving, and we get maybe a whole different type of racer or a new franchise and IP altogether.
This could be one of them that these guys have kind of went, you know what, we've took these franchises that we've been working on as far as we can go. It's time for some fresh blood.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Unbound might have been like, you know what, we're going to change up the art style, we're going to make it a bit more anime, give it a bit more distinct compared to the other races in the portfolio. Mm-hmm. And it maybe hasn't done the sales and stuff that they were hoping, and they kind of go, you know what, it's time. We've done what we can. It's in an okay place. It's not by any means dead and buried, unless EA changed the mind about it. But it feels like a franchise that EA would very much go, we're not going to kill that. But there again, we didn't expect Pokemon to kill Ash Ketchum. So
they didn't kill him. He's not dead.
They killed him off.
No,
you don't know that.
He's not dead. They're not going to kill someone in a kid's cartoon. I mean, they fight Pokemon against each other, but no one actually dies.
We don't know. We've got 11 episodes to see what they do with him.
He's not going to die.
Have you seen? Anyway, let's move on to Bloober Team of working on a new horror IP. So Bloober Team are the team that have worked on games such as Laser Fear, Observer, The Medium, and Blair Witch. They've announced a new partnership with Take-Two publishing label Private Division that'll see it create a new survival horror IP. We're not expecting it till like 2025, but any thoughts, Chris?
Bloober Team, they've recently been contracted to work on the Silent Hills game, right? That was Bloober Team.
I think so, yeah.
They were pulled out of it. I'm not really like looking at their games list. There's nothing necessarily in there that makes me like go, ooh, these guys have got like that special something. So I don't know. Same with like Private Division.
They're a developer that I keep hearing about. So I think it's like, you know how like From Software seemed to be bubbling under the surface for quite a while, and then they kind of started breaking through with like Demon Souls, and then Elden Ring just blew them out the water. I almost feel like Bloober Team mean that kind of the waiting for that one hit that's just going to launch them to the stratosphere.
Yeah. So I mean,
in the survival horror genre.
Yeah, I don't think they've got anything special. I think Layers of Fear was like received okay. Layers of Fear 2, same, received okay. The Medium, which was kind of hyped up quite a lot, it was one of the Game Pass games last year. Didn't really set anything on fire. And then they've announced Layers of Fears, which is a terrible naming convention for their third entry in the Layers of Fear franchise. Doesn't do anything. Again, I don't know, but I say it's because it's horror maybe, but then again, I'm massively into like the RE games, and Silent Hill looks great. So to confirm, Bloober Team are the guys who are working on the Silent Hill 2 remaster. They're essentially they're doing a
RE games and Silent Hill have that IP, and IP is so important nowadays.
Yeah, I mean,
when you've got a strong IP, you're immediately getting people's interest. Is it because like you're just kind of rediscovering the genre that you might? And so like Resident Evil and Silent Hill, these are games that you've heard tons about over decades, how much they love. So like they have your interest as kind of like, if you were getting into JRPGs, you'd be immediately drawn to like a Final Fantasy.
Yeah, true.
And then once you're in the genre, you start looking a bit more around.
Yeah. I'm also heavily influenced by like the people that I listen to and watch, and I know a lot of the podcasts I listen to, they're not overly keen on the work Bloober Team have done. They just seem to have, they just seem to have this kind of vibe about them that they're just not, they don't cut the mustard as much as you'd want.
Yeah, that's why hopefully Silent Hill
is that breakout change for them.
They're not quite sticking the landing, but it feels like they're almost there. They're starting to find it. Yeah. Not bad games, but like... But anyway, if you're into survival horror, you won't have too long to wait, just about 3 years.
Just a show out. And I mentioned you'd got to imagine a lot of their money is going towards Silent Hill because they cannot mess that up.
Yeah, that's... Silent Hill could be the one that like pushes them through.
Yeah, Silent Hill I think could help them like Bluepoint had.
Yeah.
With kind of their remake games where Bluepoint were just a support team and then they worked on a couple of titles. They did the Uncharted trilogy, they did the Shadow of the Colossus remaster, and then all of a sudden it was like, oh, Sony snapped them up, and then now they're working on their own. They did Dark Souls as well. Yeah. And they had like such a good polish on those games. So if they nail it with Silent Hill 2 remake, that could possibly land them a contract for a brand new Silent Hill entry, or more importantly, this game, which we're talking about here, this new horror IP, it could be the bit like the team that brought you Silent Hill 2, and they get that kind of, like you said, renowned fame that elevates them to that next level, and the budget, more importantly.
I sometimes wonder, like, you know, when you, like, to use football as an analogy, sometimes you'll see, like, a player at a team or in a league that he's clearly surpassed that level.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And you're looking at it, he looks talented, but he seems limited because football's a team game, by those that are around him. Mm-hmm. When sometimes you give him, like, he gets to a bigger team and then suddenly he explodes and like the world changes for him. I wonder if Bloober Team like that, like you mentioned, the Last Guardian guys, so you mentioned like Bluepoint is like, there's clearly talent, a lot of talent there, and then somebody went, what can you do with this IP? And then they just, oh my god, they exploded. Yeah. I don't know. I have this feeling with Bloober Team that there's talent there that it just hasn't quite been fully harnessed yet. Silent Hill might be, I think, the thing that really could push it. I think it could be make or break for them. Because if they nail it, then suddenly everyone's going to be paying a lot more attention to whatever the next project, which is the one they've just announcing with Private Division, will be.
Mm-hmm. Indeed. Yeah. Fingers crossed for them.
But they could go... They have the risk of doing the CG Projekt Red thing where Witcher 3 was the thing that broke them out, elevated them, and then Cyberpunk kind of slammed them back down to reality. But they're recovering. Well, moving on, we heard a bit more about Armored Core actually this week, because it was shown at the Game Awards, and then it's From Software since come out and confirmed that they're not intentionally going to make this a Soulsborne game.
Yeah, which is what we theorised, didn't we? We thought, even though they've had loads of success from the Soulsborne style with Sekiro and with Elden Ring, I think going back to Armored Core, you've got that, pardon the pun, core audience who have played the other games, but we've not had a game in 10 years, so they have an opportunity to mix it up a bit, and I think a lot of people figured that they might lean more into their Soulsborne roots, and I actually think for From Software, it's a great opportunity now to maybe diverge a little bit and not just be known as the studio that makes the hardest shit games with cool bosses.
Yeah,
and
take
embrace
the cool
maybe
stuff you've learned
pivot
from making polished experiences like Elden Ring, but without like the very harsh difficulty curves or like very tight gameplay. You can maybe relax the gameplay a bit more, make it a bit more action focus, not going full arcadey, but keep that polish and like reboot a series. Because I'm glad, because it looks like they've looked back at their catalog and go, you know what, we really like this franchise. Let's give it another go. So if you're an Armored Core fan, I think this is probably good news, unless you were looking forward to like straight up Dark Souls with mechs.
Yeah,
which that could work as well. But
it could, and I do think there might be like an element of that somewhere in the game.
Yeah,
because I can't see them sidestepping it entirely. However, it will be interesting to see them have like a different genre to lean back into after 10 years.
Yeah, interesting.
We'll see. It's not really on my radar. Again, haven't played. I think outside of maybe a PS1 demo disc experience with the original, giant mechs are cool, but keep them in my Metal Gear Solid stories, I guess, rather than a story unto themselves.
I've never been much of a mech guy, to be honest. The only reason I really wanted to put it in this is just to give that, because we were talking about it last week, whether or not it would be a Soulsborne game, and because we've got the confirmation, like literally Hidetaka Miyazaki has just straight up went, no, we are not making a conscious effort to try and direct it towards more Soulsborne type gameplay. And so if you are an Armored Core fan, I just think it's important to just get that clarity out there. Yeah, and I'm glad he's done it like so quickly
nice
after not.
As well,
it sets expectation for the game correctly, and I think that's always a good thing.
Yeah.
But moving on to Hot Wheels.
Is it coming?
Is it or is it not coming to Game Pass? Because it did kind of come.
I think it was supposed to come on the 15th, so a few days, just at the weekend just passed. And seemingly it showed up for some people on PC Game Pass, the Game of the Year edition. But then it started to show up on consoles finally. But now it seems like some of the content from the Game of the Year edition isn't accessible. So it just seems like a bit of an odd Game Passy glitch, similar to what we had with The Walking Dead, if you recall, where the season pass, you should have had the whole game, but people were only able to access episode 1. And then the game got fully removed from Game Pass. So it seems like, again, it's probably just a version glitch or issue. We really like Hot Wheels, though. We've played it a few times on the channel. We probably play it again in the future if it keeps getting support, seasonal support. Possibly in January, as that part of our Stadia Goodbye stream. That's true. If you're looking forward to that stream, head over to Discord. We've got a section for Stadia in there. Drop what games you'd like to see us play, because this is going to be like a last hurrah for the platform, so we want to play what you guys want to play. Indeed. But it's something that I guess the devs and Microsoft just need to put their heads together and figure out, because it's odd announcing stuff and then it not being true to what's actually described. Because there'll be people out there who are excited for this. There'll be people who played the game before but didn't have the Game of the Year content and maybe were excited to jump back in. And to do so and see it's either not there or it's inaccessible, it'll just cause some frustration among some people. So, again, just tidy things up. But nothing too crazy. Yeah, hopefully it won't be too long before we get it. I think I can imagine the guys over there are kind of like, look, with how close we are to Christmas, like, can we get this done, get it fixed before Christmas? Like, really trying to grind it out. Well, yeah, I think we just have to be patient on this one. But it'd be nice to have it back in the Xbox catalogue, because I think I had a feeling that if it came out a year ago on Stadia, it could have been like one of them staples for our streams where occasionally we just always seem to go back to. Yeah. But talk about going fast. Sonic Frontiers races to 2.5 million sales in its first month. Impressive. Impressive, yeah. I think this might be the fastest selling Sonic game of all time. Which is surprising, considering the game was getting some stick, I think, after some of its early previews, and the director, I think, annoyed a lot of people by coming out saying they're not going to change it. It is what it is. So there was that risk of maybe rocking the boat too much. But yeah, I think Sonic Mania was probably the best received one I remember in the last 10, 15 years in my mind and what I saw. I think that game sold over about 1 million. But yeah, this is a decent shout. It's the best Sonic game in a long, long time from what I've seen, especially a 3D Sonic game.
Yeah, but that's not difficult. 3D Sonic is
exactly.
2D Sonic is almost always being well received. 3D Sonic is almost universe being not well received.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, with upcoming, I think there's a Netflix series that starts this month, and obviously the movies are doing surprisingly well. Sonic 2, I watched the other week, had a fun time with it.
Yeah, I kind of find the concept of Sonic Frontiers a bit weird. It feels like, we're going to make Sonic open world. It feels like almost like 15 years late to the open world idea.
Yeah, and again, looking at some of the clips, the thing that always put me off is it just seems like very, very empty.
Yeah.
But apparently that's part of the charm and the fun when you get into these little biome areas.
I suppose part of it could be like, with Sonic moving so fast, you don't want to put too much stuff in there, because you don't want to worry people about just missing stuff. You know, like both me and you, when it comes to open world games, we're exploring every nook and cranny.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine trying to do that in a Sonic game where the game wants you to blast around the map like at a high pace.
Yeah, I guess it's an interesting one to tackle. I'm sure they've got like content in mind for it.
Well, there's free updates announced for 2023.
Oh, there you go then.
They will include things like a photo mode, new challenges, and story content.
Yeah, but well done, Sonic. Anyway, I'm a Sonic fan. I was a Sega kid originally, so it's nice to see the little blue Blair doing well on all fronts: video games, TV shows, and movies.
Any interest in watching Sonic Prime?
No, I think
it's on Netflix. Yeah, I don't think
unless it comes out like to rave reviews. I think we were saying the other day with all the Pokemon news, it's like I appreciate the story, but there's so much like filler in kids' TV shows now. It's like my brain, I'll either switch off from it. I might put it on in the background or something, but it's been a long time since I watched the Sonic cartoons. What were the Dr. Robotnik robots called? There was like the chicken.
Oh, I can't remember. I remember watching the TV show as a kid, but I can't remember anything about it.
Chicken and Robot. What were they called? I found that. Scratch and Grounder.
Yeah.
Were the two. The little green guy and the giant rooster robot, I guess.
You know what? I want Sonic Frontiers to come to Game Pass, because I don't think it's a game that I'm not when I'm looking at it, I'm probably not going to ever buy. But if it comes to Game Pass, there'd be one evening is like, you know what, I could see myself just jumping in for an evening, or like, you know, one of them evenings, like you're between games, like, you know what, I'm going to get a few beers and I'm going to play some Sonic Frontiers.
Yeah, I could see that. Same.
Yeah. Right, so it's not a game that I'm absolutely desperate to play, but a game that I know that you've been desperate to play, The Witcher 3.
Yeah, next gen.
So, at the time of recording, it's currently sitting on a 96 on Metacritic from the critical reviews. However, interestingly, only 7.4 on user score, but I think it's getting review bombed because it's the remaster.
Yeah, so, I mean, again, you only need to know the kind of overall consensus. The game was great to begin with, and it's the best version the game's ever had in terms of like visuals. So it can't be any worse unless somehow the visual improvements came with like game-breaking bugs.
Oh, I just read one of the like negative reviews, because I do sometimes like read them to kind of see, like, check, is this just getting review bombed because people like seem to do that. Yep. And one guy give it a 2 on Metacritic, and I quote, "Playing this is like eating cardboard. Recommend if suffering from insomnia only. You'll fall asleep every time."
Some people are just idiots, aren't they?
Just like, what even is that? Like, really? Like, it's one of the most reviewed games. It gave God of War Ragnarok a 4. Another YouTube movie garbage from Sony. There's
people who are just like that out there. We had a chuckle offline the other day about someone on the Facebook social feeds that we post to. So we don't do that much on social media outside of like Twitter and a couple of Facebook. We've pretty much give up on Reddit since the Stadia closure. But we put this week's CloudQuest. In fact, last week's CloudQuest went out into a couple of feeds, into Stadia feeds in particular, and there was a guy who just someone definitely pissed in his cereal this week because he just was not having that. We posted a video talking about the Stadia dev kits in a Stadia group, and he just kept saying it's a dead platform. Why are you doing a show on it? And it was like, dude, this is a Stadia group. You understand we're putting Stadia content because there's news that have came out about development kits, which no one knew about prior to this, in the wild, and we talk about it on our show, our topical discussion show, and he just couldn't get round. And yeah. Anyway, the internet, again, it's not worth going down the internet. But in terms of The Witcher 3, Richie, yes, I've done the update. I'm playing it. I'm not that far in. I'm just I'm on the track of the hippogriff, not hippogriffs. What's it called?
Oh,
the griffin,
right.
The big griffin thing that you hunt down.
So are you still with Vesemir?
Yeah. I started right at the beginning. I had the option to transfer my old save over, but I thought it's been that long since I played it. I want to just freshen right from the get-go. I'm even doing the tutorials, and to go back to what we said at the top of the show,
I think it's worth doing the tutorials if you haven't played the game in a while.
Oh, yes. And that kind of goes back to, I feel like one of the times I maybe gave up on it the first time round, and in our comparisons to High on Life at the beginning of the show, the inventory management in this game is insane. Like, as someone who's dabbled in it before, but going back to it, it's just like the crafting and the upgrading, and it just gives you a lot right from off the bat. And I'm looking at, like, I've got 6 spells that I can apparently cast. Not just going to give me one and then slowly trickle feed me new abilities. It's like, here's 6 spells, use them all now. You've got 2 swords, by the way. And it just and then it releases you onto the map, which is like there's fucking icons all over the joint. And I'm like, as someone who's played a lot of open world games, I couldn't help feel over the years since The Witcher 3 came out, there's been a lot of refinement that's gone into open world RPGs. And
I don't think
sense
the map
it
jumps you into that is it Whitehaven or something. That's actually kind of small. That reminds me of like Assassin's Creed Odyssey. You know, the first island you start on. It's kind of like that. Then once you get off the island, the game really starts. You're basically doing the prologue.
Yeah.
But I do get it does drop a lot of systems at you. But I think there's also part of it when the game was conceived. This is the 3rd game in the series.
Yeah, I totally get that. And again, I'm not kind of criticizing the game for it. Yeah. It is the kind of core concept of the game. But then I got to the end when they introduced Gwent, and I was like, oh, here's a whole bunch of new fucking rules to learn with this whole new card game. Which I said, me and Rob on
Gwent's
previous shows, I think we're not that interested in digital card games.
I think Rob said he was into Gwent.
Was he? It was one of the two.
Yeah.
And then what was it? What was the thing that made me just? It made me like chuckle to myself because again, I'm going to persist with it because I want to play through, and I'm enjoying it. Like, definitely not taking away from that.
When you get, it's one of them. There's a lot of systems up front, but when you get into it and like
you
things, I know Rob wasn't a fan of like the crafting of things like the oils and stuff and the potions, where I kind of like them because unlike other RPGs, you make your potion, you drink it, it's gone, you have to go find your ingredients. With The Witcher, like, your potions kind of, and your oils reset when you rest.
Right.
So, like, you go, okay, I'm going to go hunt this thing. So once you've made the potion, you have it there, it's done. You can just then choose to use it. And so I kind of like the way I always handled that. But so it limits the amount you can have, but you know it's going to reset, which I always found encouraged me to use them.
Yeah, I think I was playing it late at night. It was like 1:30 last night, and I got to the point where it opened up the inventory and it shows you like the 5 separate columns for potions and oils and elixirs and whatnot. And then it was just like pop-up menu of like, here's a paragraph of reading, here's another paragraph of reading, here's another paragraph of reading. And after like 6 or 7, my brain was just like, I can't even remember what the first 3 were now. So I was just like, skip. I just want to play the game and get into it. And I've gone and hunted the wild dogs. I've helped the one with a frying pan, like all those like typical early doors missions you do. Roach getting stuck on fricking everything again still, so the horse mechanics still a little bit clunky, but again, it is a 7-year-old game, and it's fun though. I'm enjoying it so far, and I'm again, that's my Christmas game, so I plan on ticking away. Are you gonna go back to it?
I don't know, because
you've ummed and ahed.
I am umming and ahhing. I keep thinking about it, but I keep trying to talk myself out of it, actually, more than talk myself into it, because I do want to finish God of War, which I'm not that far off. We talked before the show. I need to jump back into Pokemon. I haven't touched that in a couple of weeks since I switched back over more to God of War since England got knocked out the World Cup.
You got the Plague Tale games.
I've got Plague Tale to play, and then there's everything on Game Pass. So there's a lot of stuff pulling my attention. So I haven't, and like Crisis Core as well might be a pickup at some point. So this is why I'm trying to talk myself out of it, because do I want to spend like another like 60, 70 hours playing through a game I've played through twice already when there's other stuff I haven't played that I want to play?
That's the biggest question, isn't it?
Yeah.
And you've got a bunch of great shows to make as well, Richie.
We have, but I think that might be all we have time for this week. If you've liked the video, make sure you hit that like button and consider becoming a member for as little as 99p, where you get early access to Talking the PS, you get early access to CloudQuest, and, well, actually, you got early access to Chained Echoes last week as well. If you've got a question you want to ask us, or just want to hang out with some awesome people, we have a Discord server. The link is in the description below. Thank you very much for watching. My name's been Richie.
Merry Christmas.
We've been Helix Plays Games. We'll see you in the clouds.
Goodbye.
Bye.